Meet Frank William Abagnale, Jr., a name synonymous with audacious deception and jaw-dropping exploits. Today, we're delving into the incredible story of how Frank, the master of disguise, outsmarted everyone and lived a life straight out of a Hollywood movie.
But before we go any further, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. So let's get started.
Born in 1948 in New Rochelle, New York, Frank's life was nothing short of a roller coaster. In his early teens, his parents divorced, and our story takes a twist here. Unlike the movie's portrayal, Frank chose to live with his father after the divorce. It was during these turbulent times that he started developing the skills that would eventually make him a legendary white-collar criminal. Fast forward to his teenage years, and Frank was already a 6-foot-tall, 170-pound charmer. People mistook him for an adult, and he began frequenting New York's elite establishments, soaking in the habits of the powerful. He dabbled in cons, womanizing, and thievery, with a few minor run-ins with the law, but nothing stuck to his record. Frank managed to cash a whopping $2.5 million in fraudulent checks across 26 different countries. And he believes if he had today's technology, he could have pulled off a heist worth $20 to $50 million through identity theft. Frank's incredible journey hit a speed bump when he was apprehended in Miami. The officers were all about questioning his identity, but Frank was having none of it. He insisted he was Frank Williams and produced identification and references from actual airline personnel he had befriended. With their help, he talked his way out of trouble, proving that charm and wit can be your best allies. Frank needed a fresh start, so he moved to a residential community in Atlanta, Georgia. There, he met a doctor and got creative with his backstory. The doctor was convinced and invited Frank to observe work at the hospital, where his friendly demeanor soon earned him the trust of the hospital staff. Frank didn't stop there. He even got a temporary position supervising medical interns over the night shift, despite still being a teenager. He used humor to deflect questions he couldn't answer, leaving the actual care to the young doctors he was overseeing. In reality, Frank headed to Louisiana and rekindled a romance with a stewardess from his Pan Am days. He convinced her he had a law degree from Harvard, a fib that led him to meet a lawyer in the state district attorney's office. This lawyer believed Frank and suggested he just needed his Harvard law transcripts and to pass the Louisiana bar exam. In a surprising twist, Frank actually studied for a few weeks and passed the bar. He landed a job as a legal assistant but couldn't escape his web of lies. During a trip to Utah, Frank had yet another idea: become a professor of sociology at Brigham Young University. And of course, he did it with forged credentials. It's a con that the movie skips, but it's part of the real whirlwind of Frank's life. Frank did attempt to deflect some attention by putting together one last Pan Am con, where he interviewed women at a college to recruit 8 new Pan Am flight attendants. But the reality went even further. He did take his beautiful new crew on a promotional tour around Europe, all of which was actually bankrolled by Pan Am errands. He pocketed $300,000 of Pan Am's money, in addition to his fraudulent company expense checks. At 20 years old, Frank then attempted to retire and live a normal life. He changed his name, pretended to be a successful screenwriter, and settled in Montpellier, France, a town not far from where his mother was born. But his normalcy would be short-lived. The FBI was closing in. In the film, Tom Hanks plays an FBI agent named Carl Hanratty. In reality, Hanratty was also a conglomeration of various agents, but was most closely inspired by Special Agent Joseph Shea. Some have said that Shea and Abagnale built a certain rapport over the years they played cat and mouse with each other. In 1969, at the age of 21, Abagnale was captured in France, where he served time for 6 months. Unlike the film, neither the FBI nor Special Agent Shea had any part in his capture. Rather, Abagnale was reported to the French police by another woman he used to date. In one of the most exciting scenes of the film, when Frank and Special Agent Hanratty arrive in New York from his European deportation, Frank manages to escape through a plane door. And while this may seem like a wild Hollywood dramatization, Abagnale did actually escape the plane while on the runway through the kitchen galley. The film shows Frank running to his mother's house, where he sees her happy life with her new family, and then is brought to jail to serve out his sentence. In reality, he managed to evade capture for several weeks before finally being apprehended at the Montreal airport. In reality, Frank decided to move to Louisiana on his own, where he took up again with the stewardess from his time as a co-pilot with Pan Am. He convinced her that in addition to being a pilot, he had received his law degree from Harvard, and she introduced him to a lawyer in the state district attorney's office. During a trip to Utah shortly after, he decided to become a professor of sociology at Brigham Young University again, with forged credentials. It's a con that the movie skips, but it's part of the real whirlwind of Frank's life. Frank Abagnale's escape from the federal detention center in Atlanta was nothing short of genius. With a little help from his girlfriend, Joan Sebring, they reprinted business cards with new numbers for 2 payphones inside a mall. Sebring then handed over the police inspector's card and the FBI agent's card with the updated phone numbers to Frank during visitation. Armed with these 2 simple business cards, Frank had the guards and their lieutenant convinced that he was, in fact, a prison inspector. He claimed to have urgent business with the FBI and used the forged FBI card with the new phone numbers to call the payphones. Jean Sebring was ready on the other end, posing as the agent's secretary. Frank convinced the staff that he had sensitive information that could only be delivered in person. The FBI agent would have to come to the prison. Sebring picked him up, and off they went. Frank didn't waste any time. He hopped on a Greyhound bus and disappeared into the world once more. He remained on the run for a whole month until the inevitable happened. His capture in the bustling streets of New York City outside the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. 2 plainclothes detectives enjoying hot dogs on the street recognized Frank and called out,
"Hey, Frank!"
Abagnale couldn't help but respond to the name, but he quickly tried to deny his identity. It was too late. He was arrested and in FBI custody the very next day. Frank Abagnale pleaded guilty to all the known and unknown crimes he had committed. In 1971, he was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Remarkably, 5 years into his sentence, he was released with one condition. He had to assist the FBI with their cases and share his unique skills. Just like in the movies, Special Agent Joseph Shea played a pivotal role. He suggested Frank's early release and brought him to work at the FBI without pay. What's more, the 2 became not just colleagues, but unlikely friends. Abagnale even used the pseudonym Sean O'Reilly to protect Shea's identity when he published his book. Frank Abagnale went on to establish a secure document consulting company, Abagnale and Associates. He continued to use his expertise to prevent fraud and, in a twist of fate, met his wife during an undercover assignment for the FBI. They had 3 sons, and he said that his proudest moment was when his oldest boy became an FBI agent. While the movie may have exaggerated and over-dramatized certain parts of his life, Frank has clarified that it was just telling a story and not his true biography. Still, the verified claims we do have show that he was one of the greatest criminal minds of all time.